Federal forces simultaneously moved in on 3 massage parlors scattered throughout the commercial district, deploying tactical teams to swiftly neutralize all suspicious locations. Glass doors were breached as the special ops teams flooded inside, while the logistics group sealed off the entire perimeter, ensuring no vehicles could escape. The internal surveillance system was immediately disabled the moment a technician accessed the central control panel. The space, previously disguised by soft lighting and relaxing service signs, instantly revealed its true nature. Small rooms, locked doors, walls fitted with hidden tracking devices, and the presence of women without any legal documentation. The lead reconnaissance team rapidly forced open each room, documenting signs of coercion, old locks hastily replaced, cameras concealed in ventilation holes, and logbooks detailing the service schedule placed on tables. Some victims tried to stand but were physically debilitated, others panicked and huddled in corners. Accompanying medics immediately escorted them out, screened their health status, and separated them from the hazardous area. 2 individuals showed signs of severe exhaustion and had to be transferred to an ambulance. In a back storage room, authorities discovered a shipping box containing confiscated passports, sealed in evidence bags, similar to materials managed by the operators. When the technical team found a false wall leading down to an underground room, reinforcement teams were immediately called in. The steel door was breached, revealing a space with 2 folding cots and multiple video recording devices pointed toward the door. This indicated it was a temporary detention area for newly arrived victims. A young woman near the wall in a near-fainting state was rushed out immediately. On a table, scattered notes with dense work schedules showed they were forced to serve continuously for many hours with almost no rest. While perimeter security teams continued checking every vehicle, a group of suspects attempted to flee out the back exit in a pickup truck. Forces quickly intercepted them at the intersection. 2 suspects resisted stubbornly but were subdued in seconds. One person sustained minor injuries while attempting to climb a fence, was quickly treated by medics, and taken into custody. Inside the truck's cab, officers found radio broadcasting equipment and a coded delivery manifest using internal symbols, suggesting the 2 suspects were not merely isolated transport personnel but were part of an organized operational chain. At the 3rd location, the situation was more complicated as the management team had calculated their escape time upon sensing the raid. One of the back rooms was locked from the inside, forcing the special ops team to use tools to break the door. Inside were 5 women under constant surveillance, with visible marks from restraints on their wrists. Personal items, phones, luggage tags, identification had been confiscated and stacked in nylon bags, all of which were sent to the coordination center as supporting evidence. On a desk right by the door, a thick ledger detailed earnings per shift, per client, and even per day. The abnormally high figure suggested the cash flow wasn't limited to a disguised service but was the revenue stream of a larger network operating behind the scenes. With all hotspots secured, the on-scene commander confirmed the number of victims exceeded initial predictions. A total of 19 people were evacuated, many showing signs of extreme exhaustion and requiring urgent medical attention. Several suspects were arrested on the spot, while others were pursued as they attempted to slip out back doors or blend into the nearby residential area. Border control units arrived to assist with identity verification and to separate the victims from any individuals who might pose a threat or exert influence. As the 3 facilities were sealed, the entire force knew this was not merely the end of a successful raid. The documents, equipment, cash flow, and abnormal schedules recovered that day were clear signs that behind the glass doors marked relaxation services lay a sophisticated, structured, coordinated, and far-reaching operational model. And this day had just opened the door to an unprecedented, large-scale sweep. The interstate network uncovered as soon as the 3 facilities were sealed and all victims were transferred to safety. The analysis team immediately began processing the equipment seized at the scenes. Within the backup hard drives, numerous data files, recorded vehicle movement logs, electronic payment receipts, and notably, a chain of unusual transactions linked to shell companies registered in other states. The correlation in sending and receiving times led investigators to realize that the massage parlor's money flow was not localized but was coursing through an organized system located thousands of miles away across multiple cities. The frequent vehicle trips seen at the raided facilities also showed up on traffic cameras in Denver, Houston, San Antonio, and Tuscaloosa. The repetition rate was too high to be a coincidence. Whenever a group of women vanished from one location, a few days later, Cameras in a different city would record a group with similar appearances turning up at a new massage parlor. This constant rotation indicated that victims were moved in a cyclic pattern to prevent them from becoming familiar with any location and to reduce their chances of escape. In the compiled report, investigators pointed out that businesses outwardly posing as therapy, salons, wellness centers, or small import services were actually acting as the core nodes in the operational chain. Cash flow was aggregated daily at each facility, then transferred to a central collection point whose address was constantly changing. The expenditure level for each business was too low compared to the amount of money being moved, leading the federal financial strategists to conclude this was not typical tax evasion but a sophisticated money laundering network. Several seized computers contained tools that automatically linked data to the bank accounts of companies in various states. In each transaction, the money was broken down into small amounts microtransactions, making it undetectable by traditional auditing algorithms. However, the identical small-scale partitioning structure across multiple states created a repeating pattern, which helped the investigative team trace the flow. This consistent pattern exposed the presence of a covert control center where every transaction was pre-planned, from the daily deposit amounts to the transfer schedule between branches. While financial analysis was underway, ground surveillance teams were dispatched to the suspicious addresses on the list. Many storefronts had closed for renovation signs, but the signs of activity inside were the opposite. Windows were completely covered, cameras were installed in blind spots, and fresh tire tracks were visible in front of the storage areas. Many locations, despite having no customers, showed abnormally high electricity consumption, indicating 24-hour equipment operation. When the technical team inspected the power sources, they found cooling systems designed for warehouse storage, not typical service facilities. A key finding was that the victims' movement information perfectly matched the location data of some of the men arrested at the initial scene. These individuals frequently drove to multiple states in very short periods, stayed for only a few hours, and then returned to their starting point. This proved they were not low-level employees but were responsible for transporting the victims and managing the rotation between branches. The fact that 3 suspects were arrested while attempting to flee inadvertently helped investigators cross-reference travel history and link seemingly unconnected facilities within the system. During the sweeping process, the analysis team further discovered a chain of unusual fluctuations in the account of an import-export service company. Although their monthly revenue reports were very low, this company's account received large sums of money from across the country and transferred them out the same day. Once the money was moved overseas, it vanished from the system, untraceable by conventional means. The simultaneous appearance of small, unidentified shipments led federal forces to suspect these stores were the transshipment points for money and information out of the territory. When all the data was systemized, the map revealed a much larger network than initially anticipated. From the raided massage parlors, numerous branches in various other states showed identical operating characteristics: highly restricted, continuous rotation of personnel, opaque finances, and always connected by a covert transport route. The evidence gathered that day immediately triggered the next step, expanding the sweep to locations identified as financial transfer hubs, storage warehouses, and victim staging areas. As the deployment order was issued, the entire force prepared for a completely new scope, a deeper plunge into the operational system of a complex, unprecedented federal crime network, the Jade Serpent Syndicate and corrupt insiders. As the network map was finalized, the analysis team noticed a chain of financial transactions that were too structurally tight to be standalone operations. The money transfers from the massage parlors were only the outer layer of a multi-tiered system. After being collected at the intermediate points, the funds were immediately distributed to shell companies located in major cities across the South and West. The division ratios between the companies were identical, and the operating methods remained unchanged, even though the locations were thousands of miles apart. This was a clear sign that there had to be a single command center behind this entire system. While decrypting hidden folders, the technical force discovered a group of files with similar encryption structures, sharing a single root key. When the key was opened, a cascade of internal documents was revealed: organizational charts, victim rotation routes, revenue reports, and a list of core personnel. The phrase constantly appearing in the documents, Jade Serpent, became the first identified name of the network. Other supplementary information caused the investigation to pivot. This organization was not just involved in human trafficking but was also coordinating the flow of narcotics from South American criminal groups into the domestic market. Their operation was split into 2 branches: One controlled women for forced labor exploitation and the other transported fentanyl and cocaine through small commercial fronts. A batch of equipment seized at the Denver facility contained sealed containers of massage oil. When the forensics team inspected them, the oil was only a cover. Beneath it were silver bags containing a fentanyl mixture compressed into bricks, valued at millions of dollars. This proved that the massage parlors were not only detention points but also gateways for contraband transportation. The combination of the two fields, human trafficking and narcotics, generated a massive profit, enough to sustain a cross-state operational apparatus. By tracking external accounts, the analysis team found the money flowed to two main places. One branch went into accounts belonging to companies disguised as household goods importers. The other flowed into the financial systems in Central America and parts of South America. This perfectly matched the drug routes coordinated by the South American cartels. The parallel appearance of both routes indicated that the Jade Serpent Syndicate was a rare hybrid structure, an organization combining the personnel control techniques of Asian human trafficking rings with the narcotics distribution system of South American cartels, maximizing the strengths of both. While the analysis team focused on the money trail, special reconnaissance teams were sent to inspect the locations that appeared in the suspects' travel histories. On the outskirts of Houston, a small warehouse with a faded sign showed unusual activity. The space was divided into multiple separate rooms, each fitted with an electronic lock system and a camera pointing inward, not out. Although no victims were found inside, signs of restraints and discarded items suggested this place had been used as a temporary holding point before victims were transferred to other facilities. Another location in San Antonio showed an even higher level of sophistication. An old building on the outside had newly installed ventilation and cabling systems. When the reconnaissance team inspected it, they found signs of a small-scale lab, stainless steel tables, chemical drums, and some residual white powder. The samples were analyzed immediately on site, with results matching refined fentanyl. This confirmed that the organization was not only importing narcotics but was also involved in part of the manufacturing process, creating self-sufficiency in their supply chain. Throughout the surveillance process, investigators also noted the appearance of multiple groups of men with the same identifying characteristics in different cities. They would typically arrive at a location for a few hours and then leave in unlicensed or short-term rental vehicles. The simultaneous appearance of groups moving in the same pattern reinforced the conclusion that the Jade Serpent Syndicate was a clearly compartmentalized organization, with a dedicated surveillance division and an intermediary team responsible for coordinating the rotation of personnel and goods. By the time all data was merged, federal forces understood they were no longer dealing with simple disguised massage parlors but were touching the tip of a massive structure with the operational capacity of a multinational enterprise. The connection between human trafficking, narcotics, money laundering, and cross-state transport was too complete to be dismantled by small-scale raids. All of this compelled federal command to activate the next step, finding the control center and striking the single point that could make the entire network collapse in one day. Exposing the treason, corrupt federal insiders. When all the encrypted data of the Jade Serpent Syndicate was compiled, the technical team began examining the files with the highest security levels. A hidden folder, buried deep within the hard drive, contained a series of files whose structure was unlike financial documents or shipping manifests. They were named in short codes, with no descriptions and no direct link to any facility. Therefore, when the decryption key was opened, the entire command center immediately recognized the danger level of the information in their hands. Inside were not criminal records. They were lists of people who were supposed to be protecting the law. Customs inspectors, cargo screening officers, airport security personnel, trade consultants, and even some federal contractors responsible for handling import data. Each person had a note entry, periodic payments, transaction codes, and the type of priority they had granted the organization. These funds were all transferred via cryptocurrency wallets, with values reaching hundreds of thousands of dollars per account. This was no longer a criminal network operating through simple schemes. It was sustained by the protection of the very people who had the power to stop it. More seriously, the analysis team discovered documents codenamed Serene, Blue Ridge, and Tango 9, all related to nationally secured databases. These files showed that the internal agents had accessed or allowed access to systems used to control cargo, approve shipping codes, and flag high-risk shipments. This meant that whenever the Jade Serpent Syndicate moved narcotics or transported victims through disguised commercial routes, the people who should have flagged it actively deleted all traces before the goods reached the border. The investigation team compiled a list of over 30 individuals potentially directly involved in the protection racket. When cross-referencing their work schedules with the shipment logs, the correlations were too dense to be considered coincidental. Whenever a shipment containing fentanyl or cash was finalized, on the very day one of the internal agents was on duty, the inspection record was closed without any warning notes. This explained why a massive volume of goods moved across multiple states without being stopped at any point. The entire route had been neutralized from within the system itself. While the technical team continued to expand the trace, the personnel investigation team began reviewing the federal transactions of these individuals. Many lived in ordinary homes and drove unremarkable cars, but their accounts showed signs of sudden money deposits, with the cash withdrawn immediately disappearing through electronic wallets. Some also left traces related to fake land deals or investment scams. All of it painted a clear picture. The insider system was not just a few greedy individuals but was part of an organized network, embedded to protect the entire operational chain. At a federal trade office, when undercover forces conducted a temporary inspection, they discovered a rogue secondary server secretly connected to the internal network. This server was copying a portion of the shipping data before it was uploaded to the main system. This was the information relay point the Jade Serpent Syndicate used to know which routes were heavily scrutinized and which were downgraded. The existence of this device showed that the insiders were not just deleting traces but were also actively issuing warnings so the organization could adjust the movement schedule for victims and narcotics. During the review, one of the internal agents attempted to destroy data by activating an emergency erase mode on their personal laptop. However, the rapid response team intervened in time. The laptop was blocked after only a small portion had been deleted, but the suspect's panic was enough to confirm the extent of the crime. The individual was subdued, the device was seized, and they were immediately transferred to the interrogation area. When the list of insiders was complete, Federal Command immediately requested a top-secret surveillance order for all involved individuals. This was no longer a typical human trafficking or narcotics case. It was a case of corruption deeply rooted in multiple layers of the government apparatus. Such deep infiltration could paralyze any national defense line if not immediately dismantled. From that moment, the investigation no longer revolved around following the money or rescuing victims. It had shifted to a new phase, one targeting the very links using state power to shield the criminal organization. To smash the entire system, federal forces were compelled to strike the central coordination point, the hub where finance, personnel, narcotics, and corrupt insiders converged. And this task could not be achieved through small raids. It required a decisive single-blow operation aimed at the heart of the entire network. Operation Iron Wave, the decisive strike. When the list of corrupt insiders was finalized and the money personnel narcotics routes were fully mapped, federal forces began to tighten the outer circles. Every technical trace, every drop-off point, and every money transfer order led back to a single location, an abandoned complex deep within an industrial park on the outskirts of San Antonio. Outwardly, it was just a dilapidated warehouse with a rusty tin roof. But all the data confirmed this was the command center of the Jade Serpent Syndicate, where victims, narcotics, insiders, and cross-state cash flow were coordinated. As reconnaissance teams approached from a distance, images transmitted back to the command center confirmed the level of sophistication. The external camera system was arranged in a military-style configuration. Steel doors were lined with anti-cutting layers, and the interior area emitted abnormally high temperatures, a sign of fentanyl processing or high-power server operation. Most notably, there was a rhythmic movement of armed security groups, constantly rotating shifts and maintaining fixed positions at all entrances. This was not a hideout. It was a key operational facility, designed to withstand all conventional forms of assault. From the drone surveillance report, the command team determined at least 12 victims were being held inside, divided equally between two separate, secured zones. Each zone was guarded by 2 layers of steel doors, separated by a narrow corridor that could be locked remotely. This meant any misstep could result in the victims being moved or sealed off instantly. When the forces moved in, the objective had to be completed in an extremely short time to prevent the organization from activating its escape plan. The approach plan was deployed in a 3-pronged structure. The Federal Special Ops team on the main thrust was responsible for the breach. The technical team on the second thrust was to neutralize electronic locks and breach technical walls if necessary. The third thrust comprised the pursuit force, sealing off all exits of the industrial area to prevent any subjects from escaping. When the teams were in position, the deployment order was issued without any prior warning. The moment the main force breached the outer steel door, the interior security group reacted immediately. 3 suspects barricaded themselves in the corridor leading to the warehouse area, using obstacles to block the federal advance. The resistance situation compelled the special ops team to use a rapid suppression tactic. Armored shields were raised, the formation pressed in, neutralizing the subject's ability to move in mere seconds. One was subdued on the spot, the other 2 sustained minor injuries from collisions after attempting to climb the barricade. All were immediately separated from the area to avoid interference with the rescue mission. In the central area, the technical team discovered a control room hidden behind a false wall. Upon entry, the scene perfectly matched the data warnings. A cluster of active servers, monitors displaying transactions, and money flowing between multiple shell companies. These devices also contained all the direct links to the insiders under surveillance, including lists of upcoming shipments, transport routes, and priority codes for each cargo. Seizing this control room was equivalent to cutting the network's backbone from finance to operations. While the technical team proceeded to back up all data, the main force reached the detention areas. The first steel door was breached, revealing 4 victims with their hands tied. All were debilitated but capable of being moved from the dangerous area. 2 required urgent medical support due to dehydration and exhaustion. Medics were waiting on the perimeter, transferring them to ambulances immediately upon release. The rest were moved to a safe area for further health screening and injury assessment. In the second zone, the situation was tenser, as one suspect tried to activate the automatic lock system to keep the victims inside. However, the technical team had already accessed the control panel and disabled the circuit before the door could close. 5 victims here were also rescued successfully. One had a minor leg injury from an earlier escape attempt that was thwarted. Despite signs of psychological distress, all survived and were safely escorted out by the protection force. When the entire facility was secured, specialized units seized the servers, documents, cash, and communication equipment. Multiple suitcases filled with cash and unactivated bank cards were found in a back room, along with a large quantity of fentanyl and cocaine prepackaged for transport. The floor still bore traces of recent transactions, proof that this center was not only controlling the system but also directly handling the merchandise. By the time all victims were evacuated and all subjects in the area were apprehended or neutralized, the on-scene commander confirmed that the Jade Serpent Syndicate's command center had been completely dismantled. But the contents of the servers revealed a different truth. The organization was preparing to expand beyond the territory, establishing international branches and relying on the insider system for cover. Seizing the command center had only shaken the network. To take down the entire structure, federal forces were compelled to move to a new level, a level where any mistake could allow the organization to flee across borders and restructure. And that was the moment a national-scale operation was put on the table, a full-force campaign to cut off the last vital signs of the entire system. The final blow, annihilating the infrastructure. The servers seized at the San Antonio Command Center exposed a layer of operations the federal forces had never anticipated. The Jade Serpent Syndicate was not dependent on domestic territory. Inside the hard drives were numerous routes for the transfer of money, narcotics, and data, encrypted using international relay systems. The cash flow from the massage parlors was merely a shell. The core was a cross-border operational network, utilizing fake medical companies, industrial cargo transport routes, and virtual transshipment points established in multiple foreign countries. The original servers were connected to 3 remote control centers located deep within rugged, mountainous regions, where the organization stored data, coordinated transactions, and operated drug warehouses on a scale comparable to any major cartel. If these centers weren't destroyed immediately, the Jade Serpent Syndicate could restructure the entire system in a matter of days. Therefore, Federal Command approved an unprecedented plan for a human trafficking case, Operation Iron Wave, a simultaneous attack designed to wipe out the organization's entire logistical infrastructure. To prevent any movement or early warning, Cyber Command immediately sealed off all data lines connected to the satellite servers. Malicious code was deployed to block two-way communication, causing the organization to lose all ability to communicate. When surveillance screens went static, military units were ordered to activate a precision strike. No warning, no negotiation, no chance for the subjects to reorganize. At the airbase, 2 stealth bombers prepared for the mission to destroy the first center. Each carried heavy-duty penetrating munitions, designed to collapse underground structures despite strong reinforcement. As the planes left the runway, their objective was clear: to neutralize the data storage point and the largest fentanyl warehouse in the network. Simultaneously, 2 destroyers offshore were ordered to launch a volley of long-range missiles at the remaining 2 centers. Each missile carried a warhead designed to destroy reinforced command infrastructure, targeting positions based on drone data and satellite maps. The simultaneous attack ensured all 3 Jade Serpent Syndicate command points were wiped off the map in an extremely short time. The organization's internal communication system completely collapsed. Data warehouses containing transaction information, personnel structure, server equipment, and drug transport routes were irreparably destroyed. There was no escape route for any remaining commanders in the area. This strike forced the entire network into a state of dispersion, and that was the moment the Sweep Force opened the final dragnet. Domestically, coordinated federal and local teams simultaneously moved in on the points identified as surviving nuclei, financial warehouses, collection centers, and peripheral safe houses where the organization's operatives typically hid during upheaval. The quick reaction teams moved in a sweep pattern, sealing off each area before any subject could flee. Some groups tried to move using vehicles with fake license plates but were intercepted at the perimeter where forces had established control layers early on. In a western industrial zone, a group belonging to the organization's intermediaries attempted to destroy ledgers containing information about the money source. They used heat guns and document shredders to erase traces. However, the reconnaissance team arrived in time. The apprehension was swift but resulted in a casualty. One subject was injured while resisting and was removed from the area for medical treatment. The rest were arrested along with all the cash, transaction ledgers, and transfer documents that had not yet been destroyed. At another location, federal forces found a warehouse disguised as a household goods distribution center. Inside were over 20 processed packages, containing a mixture of fentanyl and cocaine packaged to industrial transport standards. This was the shipment prepared for the final transit route before the organization was taken down. The discovery of this warehouse confirmed that the destroyed centers were only the core. The network's periphery was still active and needed complete eradication. As the sun reached its zenith, coordinated forces reported that all key points were secured. The number of apprehended suspects grew rapidly. Transport drivers, cash collectors, server technicians, and individuals playing a supporting role in the financial chain. Each arrest helped expand the trace chain, leading to the apprehension of new links. By the end of the day, Command confirmed the Jade Serpent Syndicate network had been defeated at every level, from operation, command, finance, to logistics. The remaining remnants were incapable of restructuring, with nowhere to hide, and no lines of resupply. The victims rescued throughout the campaign were transferred to care centers, each carrying a piece of the story that had never been heard before. And as the entire operation concluded, the special ops teams understood that this raid had not just destroyed an organization. It had dismantled a system of human and drug exploitation operating right next to seemingly peaceful neighborhoods and the protective apparatus that stood behind it.